Thank you all for coming out on pretty typical Houston weather in August. My name is Marc Eichenbaum. I have the pleasure of being co-minister of Emerson Unitarian Universalist Church. The congregation has existed in Houston, right in this very spot, since 1960. Our congregation is intimately involved in an awful lot of efforts in the community, and a good member of our congregation, Jonathan Watson, right there, made arrangements for this event to happen here, and we are very pleased to host this. An informed citizenry is the magic that makes the United States happen. Without that, everything else goes to pot. I can think of several other words, but we'll stick with that one. And you are here to be informed and find out what individuals who want to govern this massive city have in mind. And so without further ado, would like you all to participate in the rest of your program. Thanks for coming.
Good afternoon, and thank you for coming to Houston Area Table's Mayoral Forum this afternoon. I'd like to extend a really sincere thanks to Emerson Unitarian Church for hosting us here today. We're so glad to be here. Just in case anybody here is not aware, Houston Area Table is a nonprofit, nonpartisan 501c3 organization dedicated to communication and cooperation among Houston area progressive organizations. And today's forum was really the result of 4 organizations on the Houston Area Table. So I'd like to specifically thank the good folks from Texans Together, Houston Tomorrow, Justice for Children, and Planned Parenthood of Houston and Southeast Texas, which is where I'm from. Thank you. Preparing for this forum really was a community-wide event. These questions were really generated from community members through pretty much every medium that we could think of. So we had questions Twittered to us. We had questions emailed to us. We had questions submitted by video, as well as good old-fashioned pen and paper at a happy hour that we hosted about a month ago. We also went back and surveyed our Houston Area Table members to ask them about what issues were most important to them. And what we found out was the following topics. They're really interested in neighborhoods and quality of life, health, nonprofits, and human services, sustainability and transportation, and youth and education. So basically today, all of the candidates are going to have an opportunity to speak about their thoughts on those broad issues, and then each candidate will get a unique question submitted by one of our Houston Area Table members that will really show how they really think out specific problems that Houstons look at every day. I'm also thrilled to introduce Nancy Sims today. She's going to be moderating today's forum, and we're really, really excited to have her. For those of y'all who don't know, she is the Senior Vice President for Pierpoint Communications, and she also hosts pretty interesting Mayoral Musings blog. If you have not checked it out, please do so immediately after this event. I don't know, there might be something about the event there. Nancy has worked in public affairs arena for more than 30 years. Prior to joining Pierpoint, she owned her own public affairs and political consulting firm for 15 years, making up numbers. She advised many of Texas' leading political figures, as well as a diverse base of business interests. She has strong ties to Houston's municipal government. She has been an observer, participant, mayoral staffer, advisor, commenter, and all-around City Hall junkie since the early 80s. So she really knows what's going on when we're talking about local politics. As I said, she has a very popular blog called Mayoral Musings, which has been following these fine candidates from forum to forum and giving Houstonians fresh insight on the people who are running to be our city's next mayor. So without further ado, thank you very much, Nancy.
Thank you. Marc Eichenbaum. Okay, can you all see and hear okay? You see the candidates okay? Okay, good. And you're hearing everything okay? Yeah? Okay. All right. Unfortunately, Peter Brown couldn't be here with us today, so he is represented by Marc Eichenbaum. And also, we're expecting Roy Morales any moment, but we are going to go ahead and get started. We're not going to wait any longer. and we just have so much exciting information to discuss. And we are going to start with 3-minute opening statements, and instead of going in alpha order by last name, I'm going to flip it around for a change and go alpha order by first name. So we'll start with Ms. Oh, let me just tell you a little bit about each candidate. I forgot I was supposed to do that. In case you don't know them yet, you should know them already. Annise Parker is City Controller and served as a City Council member before that, and has been involved in the Houston community for years and years. I'll go ahead and say something about Roy. He has some city government experience and really talks a lot about his experience in the military when I've been on forums with him. Gene Locke, former city attorney, currently an attorney in private practice who does a lot of work with public interest. And Marc Eichenbaum is representing, I'm not saying it right.
It's fine.
Oh.
Call me whatever you
is representing Peter Brown. And Peter, of course, is a city council member currently and an architect, and has been involved in Houston civic activities for decades. So with that, Annise, you have 3 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you. You have a tough decision to make. Who do you trust to be your next mayor? We need a mayor who can lead our city through this tough economy and out to the brighter future on the other side. I am the best qualified candidate for the job. I have a record as a strong, fiscally responsible leader. I have a vision for the future, and I have a simple philosophy. The job of city government is to make your daily life better. I am ready to lead this city. The first thing I did as city controller was to cut my own office budget 2%. I have conducted tough audits that have identified millions of dollars in savings, money that's now working for you in parks, in libraries, in neighborhoods. I have called for a Hire Houston First program so that your tax dollars go to good Houston jobs with Houston companies. I understand that Houston is an international city, better known across our borders than across our state lines. As your mayor, I will lead the effort to make Houston the premier destination for companies wanting to do business with the United States. Houston is the oil and gas capital of the world, but Houston has to be, and under my leadership will be, the clean, green, renewable energy capital of the world. Let's talk about some of the things that need to happen in this city. I look forward to your questions today, and if I don't answer any question, I ask you to contact me through my website, anniseparker.com, where you'll see not only a way to contact me, but a series of policy papers, because I want you to know exactly the things I'm interested in and what I want to do for our city. Let me be really clear. I want your vote. I want to be mayor of this city because I know I can make a difference. But I don't want to be mayor of this city, and I don't want you to expect to make me mayor of this city without your help. This is not about sending someone to City Hall to take care of all of the problems for you. This is about sending someone to City Hall to work with you and for you as we accomplish the task to make this city a better place in which to live and work. I came to city government out of neighborhoods. I was a civic club president and an active community volunteer. I came to work on quality of life. I stayed to tackle the city's finances. In this troubled economy, you need someone with a head for business and also a heart for Houston. I'm Annise Parker. I want your vote for mayor. Thank you.
All right, Jean, you're up next. And by the way, would the timekeeper raise her hand so everybody knows where she's sitting?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to speak to you just a moment. I'm Gene Locke, and I want to be Houston's next mayor. Let me tell you something about myself first. Father of 5 children. That's probably all I need to say. By that very statement, you know that I've been able to negotiate a household. In running the city, it's something like negotiating a household in terms of keeping competing interests working together, moving down the same course. In this city, our greatest asset, just like in my family, my greatest asset is my children. In this city, greatest asset we have are our people. We're a diverse population. Sometimes we come from different cultures, different backgrounds, different incomes. You've got to have a mayor who's able to get us all working together. Common playbook, common plays, working together. I think I can do that. And so I assert to you that I believe that there are three things that you would want to have in your next mayor: experience, vision, and leadership. I think my experience speaks for itself, and I'm very pleased. Not only have I been city attorney, not only have I represented most of the governmental entities in this city, I know government back and forth, but in a prior life, I ran Congressman Leland's Washington, D.C. office. I've been a businessman, run my own law practice for a number of years. And in a life prior to the prior life, I was an everyday person who did things that everyday people work. I was a steel worker, and I worked in an oil refinery. Been a member of a trade union. I have had the experiences that Houstonians have had. And so that experience collectively, I think, prepares me for this tough task of being mayor. Vision. Where will this city go? Great international city, known throughout the world, but a city that is a safe city, a city that is economically prosperous, and a city that provides a great quality of life for its people. Great neighborhoods, great parks, great schools, great transportation system. So that's the vision. Leadership. Fortunately for me, I've been able to work with a lot of people in a lot of contexts. And because of that, I have a unique ability to bring people together to move forward. That's why I used the analogy early on of a family. And so in this election, I'm the candidate who's been endorsed by labor, who's been endorsed by business, who has support on the east side of town, on the west side of town, north side of town, south side of town. Every ethnic group, I have supporters, people of all different races, faiths, and incomes. And I think it's indicative of a belief that I can pull the city together. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to discuss my beliefs with you today. Thank you very much.
Okay, Marc Eichenbaum, speaking on behalf of Peter Brown.
Thank you, Ms. Sims. As Ms. Sims said, unfortunately, Councilmember Brown is unable to be here today because of a prior family obligation. But he would like to thank you very much for allowing me to speak in his place. The good thing is that means some of my responses, actually maybe many of them, will be short. So that's a good thing. But hopefully I'll be able to give you insight into who Peter Brown is. Peter Brown, the family man, Peter Brown, the businessman, and Peter Brown, the man in the public eye who's been an effective leader for the city of Houston. Let me tell you about Councilmember Brown. He's a third-generation Houstonian. He went to college here. He sent his kids to public school here. He has 5 children and 15 grandchildren. He knows and loves this city. He believes it's a city of energy, a city of innovation, and he believes in keeping it the city of prosperity and opportunity. What Peter is a businessman, and he knows what it's like to start a business from the ground up, with over 40 employees bringing it to national recognition. He knows what it's like to have to meet payroll, to pay rent, to get insurance, to secure financing. He knows what it's like to get results. And he wants to take his experience that he has as a businessman and bring it in to the city as being the next mayor. But to have that, you just don't have to have vision, but you also have to have a plan. And that's what Peter has, is a blueprint for what type of Houston do we want. Not next year or in just 2 years, but what type of Houston do we want in 10 years, in 15, in 20 years. And that Peter Brown's blueprint starts off with first safety. Not just getting tough on crime, but we got to get smart on crime. And getting smart on crime is getting more cops out from behind the desk and into our neighborhoods. Real community policing, where the community knows the police and the police know the community. This is decentralizing police by having real police substations in your neighborhood where they actually respond from to cut down on response time. This is about bringing in high-tech technology to look at where crime is happening and where to concentrate our police. It's also about improving our economy and building jobs. By Peter's Economic Development Office, he will proactively go out there and sell the city of Houston. We can't sit here and hope and pray for businesses to come knock on our door. We got to go out and knock on their door. And by doing that, we can bring businesses to Houston, we can keep businesses from leaving Houston, and we can help small businesses. And the last part of the blueprint is improving the quality of life. That's less congestion, that's cleaner air, that's about it not flooding when there's just a 30-minute thunderstorm in Houston. Quality of life is green space, it's education, it's everything that makes Houston a special place to be. It's Peter's vision that he has, it's that blueprint that he has to make Houston an even better city. Thank you.
And just in the nick of time is Roy Morales to make his opening statement. Roy, I didn't give a great introduction for you, so you may want to speak a little bit about your background as well. I mean, I got out about 2 lines on everybody.
Sure, 2 minutes?
3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay, great. Oh, the timekeeper's there, okay. Well, I want to say good morning, good afternoon, it's about that time. My name is Roy Morales. I'm running for mayor of Houston, Texas. And I have proudly served my country for over 23 years in the United States Air Force. And now, with your support and vote, I'd like to continue that service of history as mayor of this great city. I'm a retired lieutenant colonel, decorated veteran, who's led many successful missions in the military. I'm proud to have been Chief Space Shuttle Operations Team, a joint operations between NASA and the United States Air Force. I have led the integration of $1 billion projects for the Department of Defense. I've also owned my own company that focuses on information technology, disaster planning, and alternative energy. I also serve our community as a Harris County School Trustee, where I oversee a budget of $90 million. Houston has some very interesting concerns that we really need to focus on to make this a better city. We have to make sure that we overcome this economic storm and have economic prosperity. We need to make sure that businesses are making money. We need to make sure that businesses are there to help the nonprofits, because I'm associated with several nonprofits. I'm a president of the board of the Ambassadors International Ballet Puerto Rico, and I understand how hard it is right now during these difficult times. The best way to get this economy going is that we have to become a tax and business-friendly city once again. And that means providing property tax relief to your families and businesses, because it's your money. You should spend it when and where you choose, and not government. That's what will get businesses going. That's what will get businesses helping our community again. We also have to strengthen public safety. We also need to improve city services. And we need to have a new vision for our families, one that is about education, making sure that all of our children move up the ladder of success. Visit my website, roymorales.com, and I ask for your vote this November.
Okay, now we're going to start on the topics, and we're going to have a lead question that each candidate will answer for 2 minutes. You have 2 minutes. This forum is just great. You can actually say something. We're used to 1 minute, by the way. They're used to 1 minute. So you can actually talk in this one. Give us some real meat. And then you'll have 1 minute, 2 minutes. You'll each get a question that's a subtopic on the primary topic, and you'll have 2 minutes to answer that as well. All right, so the first lead question, we're on the topic of neighborhoods and quality of life. And the lead question is, how will you constructively embrace our population growth and diversity to improve the quality of life for all Houstonians? And we will start with Roy. I started with Annise. I'm just going to go this way on the lead questions.
Lead question. Well, I spoke about it a few minutes ago, about the concerns that we have to worry about here in Houston. You know, we all talk about improving quality of life, but I'm also here to protect that quality of life. I've talked about providing property tax relief. I'm the only candidate that is pledged to do that. The only candidate that's pledged to stop interfering with businesses. I also want to make sure that we have a better police force. We need to change that whole philosophy of policing. We need a new strategy, one that doesn't react to the criminals, but one that's prevention and deterrence. And to do that, we need new leadership at the Houston Police Department. That's why I'm one of the candidates that says that we need a new police chief. We need to make sure that we have communications among all of our police officers and law enforcement officers, so any of them can respond to when you ask for their help. Now, I've talked about property taxes because I think that's what this campaign is about. It's about taxes. Property tax is probably one of the most regressive taxes that we have. It affects so many. It affects not only homeowners and businesses, but it affects those that lease and that are renters, because renters actually pay more property taxes per square foot than homeowners. They are burdening a lot of the load here. And we know that so many that have difficulty economically reside in apartments and lease homes. Thank you.
All right, for the individual questions, Gene, you're up first. This was determined by a... Oh, wait, you do. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Okay, Gene, go ahead and answer the lead question. I was ready to dive into the individual
I'm not trying to make the rules. I'm just trying to understand. Thank you. I thought the question was, how do we manage population growth and how do we manage diversity? So that's what I want to talk about. First, on diversity. I think we manage diversity first by acknowledging that we are such a diverse city, embracing diversity, and then having a healthy respect for that diversity. Nobody should live in this city feeling like they are inferior to anybody else. No culture is subordinate to another culture. We're all Houstonians. We have to all work together. We have to all respect each other. You need a mayor who sings that song every day. And by his action, he goes to every area in the city to make sure that people are included as opposed to excluded. So that's how I think we handle diversity. On the issue of population growth, I think that's a healthy thing. I also think it's an inevitable thing. But it comes with some challenges. And the challenges are, how do we house the people, how do we transport the people, and how do we take care of the disadvantages that are already here, given the fact that there are more people coming in to compete for the meager resources that are here. And I think that's the challenge of leadership, trying to put us all together in a single space, working together. Let me say something about the advantage of population growth. It will bring brain power, capital, and energy to the city. Let me talk about the disadvantage. We will be more condensed. It would be more difficult to get around, and we will be competing for, as I said, meager resources. That's where government and the private sector and nonprofits can work together to make sure that there's a social network there for those people who are already in harm's way in our society, who may be further disadvantaged as a consequence of the growth. The growth will be a good thing. Let's embrace it, but let's manage it as best we can. Thank you.
Okay, Mark.
Councilmember Brown always says that growth should improve our quality of life and not diminish it. But the way to make sure that growth that will inevitably occur in Houston is to plan accordingly. We can't turn a blind eye on what is going to happen, and that is that our city and our region will grow. And if we don't plan accordingly for it, if we let runaway growth occur without the city stepping in and protecting neighborhoods, protecting families, then that will diminish it. Because growth brings those problems that Mr. Locke talked about: flooding, traffic, density, parking, all those things. But the mayor has to have the strong leadership to have that vision, to have that blueprint. And it's through smart development, by making sure that we have mixed-use properties, by making sure we still have adequate green space, by making sure that we provide that the public and private partnerships for parking districts so that the parking can, so that there's ample parking. Then we can make sure that our city can thrive. A great example is Washington Avenue, where it has exploded. And right now there's a little discord between the neighbors that have been living there and the new businesses. Well, the city should have seen that was going to happen and planned accordingly so that the businesses, the neighborhoods can all symbiotically live together and thrive and prosper together, but it takes somebody who's willing to put their foot forward out there and plan accordingly, because growth should be and will be a great thing for Houston.
Well, the first half of that question was about diversity. And as I said in my opening remarks, Houston is a wonderful, diverse city. The whole world lives in Houston. We are an international city. We need to embrace that and recognize it as a strength. And as we market ourselves to the world, that will be part of how we grow. But that diversity can also pose challenges. So I absolutely commit, and we should all commit, that the city workforce should look like the city that it represents, and that all boards and commissions in the city of Houston should reflect our diversity. Now let's talk about quality of life. And as I said, I came from a civic club background. I came to work on quality of life issues. Okay, I'll say it, I'll acknowledge it. I'm the author of the Pooper Scooper Ordinance for the city of Houston. Okay? I care about the little things that drive you absolutely nuts in your neighborhood. But I also care about the big quality of life issues like keeping you safe. And if you go to my website, you will see a public safety policy statement where I lay out changes that we need to perform in the police department to make each of us safer. And I too have called for a change in leadership at the police department in replacing the police chief. Quality of life is also about the air we breathe. I want a cleaner, greener, safer city, and I've worked hard to achieve that. I passed ordinances when I was a council member to limit pesticide use in our playgrounds, something that we never thought of before. Worked hard to put more parks into neighborhoods and to make the parks that we have more fun places to be and more accessible to our residents. On the range of quality of life issues, again, you have to feel safe in your jobs, you have to feel safe in your community, you have to have clean air, you have to have clean water, and then you have to have decent, affordable housing. And that is the one thing that Houston has that we can beat the pants off any other big city in America. This is a great, affordable place to live. And I'm absolutely committed to keeping that there for all of us.
Okay, now we're going to start on the subtopics. I'm just so excited about these questions. All right, Jean, you're up first. Will you provide single-stream recycling services to every neighborhood?
That's my goal. No, seriously, that is the goal, but we've got to start with a bigger problem. You're at the back end of the solution, and we've not analyzed the problem. The problem is most Houstonians don't yet buy into the notion of recycling, and that's the more difficult task. Before we take on single-stream recycling, which makes everybody feel good, let's try to get the overwhelming majority of Houstonians incentivized to recycle. Once we do that, we can have a greater impact on the environment. So what that means for me, I certainly will work for single-stream recycling, but it will be in the context of working to educate Houstonians in every community, irregardless of income, irregardless of status, whether it's homeowners or apartment dwellers, we all can recycle. We're going to have a campaign in this city about recycling that will involve young people, that will involve older people, involve students, involve everybody to make it feel like you're not really a Houstonian if you don't recycle.
Thank you. All right, Roy, you're up next. How will you involve low and middle income neighborhoods and other historically underrepresented populations, such as renters, in the capital improvement program and general planning activities?
Well, it's about information. This is an age of information. We've got to be able to use the new technology plus the old way of doing business. We've got to make sure we get the information out through our churches, our community centers, but we also have new ways of doing it through social networks, through the websites. We've got to make sure that information will be there, and that's why I want to make sure that we have a public information office that is working with all of the communities.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Parker, How will you work with arts organizations and the Greater Houston Convention and Visitors Bureau to promote Houston as a cultural destination and support our diverse creative heritage?
Any way and every way that I can. As a council member, I was actually one of the original proponents of a Percent for Art program in the city of Houston, whereby 2.5% of your capital dollars on certain projects go to public arts funding in the city of Houston. I also advocated for and achieved an increase in the hotel occupancy tax funds that go to the arts. I believe that Houston has a rich future as a cultural tourism site. We are actually, again, better known worldwide than I think in the rest of America as an arts center. And we need to build and promote that. Personally, I recently donated space on a small office building I own on Montrose Boulevard for a community art project. We'd like to see Montrose Boulevard become a boulevard of murals, and if you go to the intersection of California and Montrose, you'll see a lovely mural that was installed. It is the property of the East Montrose Management District, but it was installed with the cooperation of MoCA, Community Arts Organization. We need, as individuals, to step up and say, pick me. You want an opportunity to display your art? I'll do it. We need, as individuals, to say, I'm a part of the arts community. I will patronize the arts. I'll attend the arts events of my choice. And then we, as citizenry, need to say, we believe that the arts are important to Houston, and they need to be adequately and effectively funded. And since I have 30 seconds left, let me just talk about recycling. I co-chaired the task force that recommended the change to the single-stream recycling program. Everywhere we have put those new rolling green bins, the recycling rate triples. So we don't have to wait. We can improve recycling in Houston as soon as we can roll out those bins to the rest of the city. It's coming soon. Look for it. Thank you.
All right, Mark. How would you change or fix the historic district designation to address the concern that it does not do enough to protect Houston's heritage and character?
Well, Councilmember Peter Brown actually helped facilitate the creation of the first historic district in the city. It's the old 6th Ward Historic District. He's went on to help create other historic districts in the Heights, in Avondale, and in Chatelon. But historic districts are important for several reasons. It preserves the neighborhood, it gives the neighborhood pride and the character and the sense of history that our city has and needs to have for going on for the continue of our future. Historic districts are also, it helps property values and can be used as a tool for economic development. Historic districts, Peter agrees with them, he likes them, and he wants to look where else in the city historic districts can go to protect the neighborhoods and give them the character and pride that they have and they should keep.
All right, we have our next lead question. We're going to move on to the topic of health, nonprofits, and human services. So, Jean, you'll be up first. And the lead question is, how will you partner with area nonprofits and health service providers in your administration?
I have the view that government, at this point in our history, 2009 going into 2010, city government does not have the resources to do everything that our city demands and requires. So we have to partner with the private sector. We have to partner with nonprofits. And I'm looking forward to that. I mean, it is the delivery of services that I think we can get from nonprofits, particularly those who are close to the people, because they have an inroad that we at City Hall will not be able to. So I will have, in general, a liberal approach to that process. Now, it's easy for me to stand up and say that, and probably most people in this room know me as a city attorney, know me as a lawyer. You have probably very little history of my extensive involvement in nonprofits, but I started in the 1970s involved in nonprofits, and I have probably, well, I got a list here of nonprofits. Hope Development, Shape Community Center, Land Use and Institute, TSU Foundation, American Leadership Forum, Center for Houston's Future, Houston Katrina Reader Fund, Wheeler Avenue Christian Academy, Houston Bar Association, All Chemical and Atomic Workers Union, Houston Diversity Council, Houston Urban League, all of which I had a leadership role in some form, shape, or fashion. So I understand the importance of taking advantage of the people power that we have in the city. And I think that on social issues in particular, that's where we make the partnership. But there are some critical things that the city is doing now that needs to be enhanced. We do a good job with neighborhood centers now. We need to expand that. We do a partnership now with area neighborhood clinics. We need to expand the clinic system throughout the city, and we need to do that. We've got the Gulf Coast Head Start program. We need to work on that. Where I want to go next is with after-school programs that nonprofits and community folks and churches help me install in this city for our children.
Thank you. Okay, Mark, you're up next.
I rise to point of order. I don't think a candidate ought to be debating somebody that's not a candidate.
Thank you. Councilmember Peter Brown believes that community organizations, nonprofits, and health service organizations are a very vital tool for Houstonians. But what needs to happen is there needs to be opening up the lines of communications even greater. When a nonprofit that, for instance, deals with affordable housing, and the city is going to make a decision in their housing and urban development department, they should be consulting with that organization. That organization shouldn't find out what's happening that's affecting them in a newspaper, but should be working with the city to make that happen. It's by partnering up and opening up the lines of communications that we can make sure that this partnership does continue. And this doesn't mean putting it all on the backs of nonprofits or all on the backs of the city, but working together with wide open communication lines to really improve the services for all Houstonians.
Ms. Parker?
We never want to waste dollars, but in times like these, it becomes even more critical that every dollar we spend is spent effectively. One of the things that frustrated me the most when I came to city government is in the health department, seeing the number of grant dollars that came through the city health department where the city was actively competing against community-based organizations for the same dollars that it oversaw. I believe that wherever possible, we should contract with the appropriate community-based organizations. We should give those community-based organizations clear metrics and guidelines and hold them accountable for the services that we're funding. If they don't provide us good return, there are no insider deals, there are no perpetual contracts. We pull the money, we give it to somebody else. But for most of the health and human services area, it's not something that the City of Houston should be the direct provider. It is that the City of Houston should work for the community-based organizations on the ground that have the best available techniques to providing the service. And I look forward to working with all of those organizations as we go further. And I hope to have the opportunity to talk a little bit today about my Bank on Houston program, because it'll give you an idea on how I work in the community to bring all of the different nonprofit organizations and the business community together to effectuate change in areas where we need to make a difference.
So Roy?
Well, I thought the question had to do with how we're going to partner with different organizations to really improve our health services in our great city. Well, it's really simple. It starts with the world's finest medical center. We need to take advantage of that. We need to take advantage with partnering with them and with the Harris County Public Health and Environmental Services. They have a fantastic program over there. We also need to make sure we work with the state. We need to lobby the state to raise us up in the level of health services here. We rank very low when it comes to that. We need to work with the federal government. We need to make sure we have a line of communication across all agencies and that we're prepared and there's not hysteria with a so-called virus that's here. We need to make sure we have accurate information, but at the same time, we have to be able to run the scenarios to be prepared to protect all of our citizens. I will make sure that as your mayor, I will create a dialogue between the mayor's office and the medical center. No surprises when it comes to protecting you and your health.
Thank you. Okay, sir, I did just want to address your concern. I believe the organization made a decision to allow representative to participate. All right, we're going to go to the individual questions on Health and Human Services, and we'll start with you, Roy. That just accidentally happened, but that's all right. Currently, the City of Houston contracts with nonprofits to provide some city services when that is the most efficient solution. How will these types of arrangements factor into your administration?
Before I can answer that question, I've talked about what we need to do with the city's budget, first off. We've had a $1.5 billion deficit over the last 5 years in the general fund. Citywide, we're showing a 1.3 negative net asset. We've got to make sure we have our accounting system in order before we can start saying yes or no to certain programs. I can say that right now we would continue these efforts, but they have to be studied to see if they're the most cost-effective way to provide the services. There's a lot we can do with other agencies out there when it comes to nonprofits. I'll talk about them later when we get into education. But there's many areas that I will continue to look at to make sure that Houstonians are protected.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Parker. As the mayor of the 4th largest city in America, how will you work with state and federal governments to ensure access to health care for all Houstonians?
Well, first I want to be clear that everyone who resides in the greater Houston area ought to feel comfortable accessing any city facility, a health clinic, calling the police, and I would trust that they also would be welcome at any county facility. Healthcare is obviously a huge national debate right now, and I don't know how it will be resolved, but we're left to pick up the pieces down on the local level. So we need to do whatever we can to push health clinics out into the communities. We need to aggressively seek funds for the so-called federally qualified health clinics, where we have strong community partners that can take those federal grant dollars and put them to good use. If we can't move the health clinics out into the communities, we have to have a way to move the indigent population into the medical facilities, and that's having a good, effective mass transit system for the City of Houston. I will appoint or designate a grants coordinator in the city. We had one previously, but we haven't had one in a while, to make sure that we leave no money on the table. In Washington, we are a donor city and a donor state. We send more money to Washington than we ever get back down here. There needs to be a point person in the City of Houston to make sure that we are going after every dollar that's available, that our grant applications are coordinated, that we're saying the same thing in every place we do it, and that we put our best face forward out there when we do that. Finally, we do have the world's largest and best medical center here. I will absolutely call on the experts. And let's not forget that we have an epidemic of childhood obesity. We have a growing population with a range of chronic health conditions that can be alleviated by education. The mayor has a responsibility to be on the bully pulpit about that, and I will absolutely lead the call. Thank you.
Okay, Mark, what is your plan to provide support and resources to Houston's underserved families?
Well, Councilmember Peter Brown believes that there is a pervasive issue of poverty within Houston. And unfortunately, elected officials sometimes do not talk about it as much as they should. We often hear about homelessness, and that is an issue, but the percentage of Houstonians that are living in poverty are unacceptable. Peter believes in doing two main things. The first one is the creation of his Department of Neighborhoods. This isn't creating more government. This is reorganizing government by decentralizing it. This is taking right now all the city services that are run out of one downtown and actually having offices throughout neighborhoods, including the lower income ones, where people can come and get assistance and can get those city services that they should be getting. It's kind of like 311, but even better. It's kind of putting a face to 311, to where you can go to a Department of Neighborhood Services, you can talk with somebody, you can sign up, you can get the services you need without having to call and not really holding somebody responsible or follow up. The second thing Peter Brown would like to do is to really I'm trying to think, sorry about it. The second thing that the council member would like to do is let me look at my note. I'm sorry, this is a little embarrassing, but I'm sorry because I really feel it's important. Oh yes. The second thing is that a lot of Houstonians already qualify for lots of programs and assistance out there, like CHIP and Medicaid. But the problem is they're not getting signed up. And there's a lot of things that will be coming online at the end of this year, programs to help get Houstonians signed up. Peter Brown believes in those programs, and they need to be expanded, because we need to make sure that people are getting the services that they already qualify for, and they're not doing that right now. And that's going to help low-income people throughout the city.
Okay. Jean, I'm going to embellish this question a little bit. The question is, what are you going to do for the nonprofit community in terms of funding and bringing grants to Houston? But while you're addressing that, I want you to talk about how you can bring multiple interests together to apply for grants, because that's been a challenge Houston has faced in the past when we try to get all the groups on one page. If we don't do that, we often don't get a lot of available federal and national nonprofit grants.
Let me try to address the second part first. I had some experience with exactly that as chairperson of the Houston Katrina Rita Fund. If you remember, when we took in the people from Louisiana, a lot of our nonprofits who didn't have money themselves stretched their resources to accommodate our neighbors who came in. And as a result, the coffers were bare. The Houston Katrina Rita Fund raised $20 million to replenish those coffers. Actually, $10 million went directly to local nonprofits here to try to give back for what had been given to the people from New Orleans. But there was $10 million left, and what we did was we coordinated a program to provide educational opportunities for these New Orleans students who were 2 and 3 grades behind by providing summer and after school care. And it was a partnership between HISD and Aldine and the Houston Katrina Rita Fund. That's an example of what we have to do. And what I would do is extend that even further. When we're getting city grants, state grants, or grants from nonprofits, trying to find a situation where we can piggyback together. For example, Houston lost its opportunity to get police monies a while back, and we all were kind of taken back by that and really disappointed. It is quite conceivable that Houston could piggyback with other law enforcement agencies, i.e. Harris County, i.e. other agencies, and try to find ways to have a unique application that stands out above everything else to make ourselves more receptive to federal funding. That's the way you go after it. Now let's go back to the issue of nonprofits in Houston directly. I think one of the things that we've got to do is to enhance the pool of funders for nonprofits. And so your mayor can use the bully pulpit to constantly suggest to the foundation community that they have an obligation to educate the foundation community on the depth of the problem in Houston, therefore making the ground more fertile when nonprofits come in to ask money.
Okay, folks, I'm going to ask you to hold your applause, and at the end we'll let you give everybody a rousing round of applause, okay? To just keep us on track here. All right, next topic is sustainability and transportation. And the lead question, which we're going to start with you, Mark, what role should the City of Houston play as a regional leader to develop a sustainable Houston region?
This is an easy answer because it's a common sense answer. And that answer is that Houston has to be the forefront leader in coming up with regional solutions to the problems that we deal with. And that starts with strong leadership at the top with dealing with the mayor. Growth is going to occur whether it's in Fort Bend County, Montgomery County, Harris County, inside the city. And that growth is going to affect the people that live inside the city. First with flooding, which Peter has released a blueprint to tackle flooding. It's on his website at www.houston.gov. www.peterbrownformayor.com. I encourage you to go on there because it doesn't say what he wants to do, it says how he's going to do it. Because flooding waters do not recognize political boundaries. And whatever growth and development happens in the neighborhood next door, what happens in Montgomery County, will affect you and your house. And that's what's the understanding. And Peter, as an urban planner, he understands that. And that's what he's dealt with as chair of the City Sustainability Committee. But we need a regional solution to flooding. The county does its own thing in a vacuum. The city does its own thing to a vacuum. All the other municipalities do as well. And we really need to come together. Another issue is traffic. Development in other areas of the region affects congestion in Houston, it affects our infrastructure, and affects our air quality. Once again, we need to join forces and partner with the county, with the other municipalities, with the state, with the federal government to deal with these problems. We can't turn a blind eye to them. We have to understand how everything is interrelated.
Ms. Parker.
For sustainability in the region, we have to have jobs. You have to be able to get to those jobs. You have to feel safe going to and from those jobs. And we have to have more growth in the greater Houston region. I've spoken about that extensively in my previous remarks. Let's talk a little bit about what the city of Houston can do. First of all, we are a $4 billion corporation. And when you choose the next mayor, you are choosing the CEO of that $4 billion corporation because that's how much the city of Houston spends each year. And where and how we spend those dollars can move the needle in the city of Houston. When the city embraces something like what we call, and I have to be careful about this, pay or play, which says that if you want to take City of Houston tax dollars and be a contractor, then you need to provide health benefits to your employees, it makes a difference. So the City of Houston, as a spender, can make a huge impact on the quality of life in Houston. Now, I said you had to have jobs. We need to incentivize companies to relocate here, and I am willing to offer economic development incentives, infrastructure development incentives, other types of incentives for company relocation. Then you have to be able to move people to and from jobs. I'm absolutely committed to an effective, efficient, multimodal transit system for the City of Houston that includes everything from bike lanes to light rail to commuter rail to better streets. And then finally, you have to keep people safe going to and from their jobs and in the City of Houston. And I would encourage you to visit my website to see my public safety plan, but also my drainage plan for the City of Houston. And it has a very simple, catchy phrase in there. It's not okay to have water in your house. And I'm glad that other candidates have embraced that idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Roy. Go ahead.
Well, I disagree that this is a simple problem. This is a complex problem on sustainability and transportation in our area. You just heard it. We have a budget of $4 billion. But 5 years ago, it was $3 billion. Whose dollars are those? They're yours. Are you getting an extra $1 billion in services? I think not. I think not. We've got to change that whole philosophy. To do sustainability, we need to make sure we have jobs here and that we bring companies from around the world here, and they have to have the incentive to come here. I will provide that incentive. It's called property tax relief. I will provide that incentive. That means staying out of their business so they can grow, so they can have employees, so the employees can put food on the table and send their children to school. That's what we need here in Houston. We need improved city services where you are the boss. We need to change the whole mentality of City Hall, and they need to know they work for you. We need to make sure that we have clean, drinkable water, that we have transportation, and someday Metro needs to be an elected board because they take money from you, and anytime government takes money from the people should have the right to elect them or get them out of office. But until then, I will create something different. I will have a cabinet-level transportation officer that will help me solve this problem for transportation. So we have trolleys, we have bicycles, we have commuter rail, that we have above-ground rail system as well. But it also includes more innovation. We need to be able to use the internet as the highway is too. We need more individuals to do telecommuting from home. We need to make sure that we stagger jobs, or actually the times that workers come to work. Thank you.
Okay, now to the specific questions, and we'll start with Mark on this. Oh, gosh, I keep trying to do that. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
I'm sorry about that.
It's all right. I think the question was regional transportation and regional sustainability. First, we see ourselves, we should see ourselves as a region. And the hub of the region is Houston. And the hub of the hub is the mayor's office. So we have to lead by example. We have to lead the region. Let's talk about leadership in the area of transportation. I think that we have to start now developing a regional transportation system for the area so that Metro is interfacing with the areas outside of the city of Houston so that we have a seamless transition. One can get a ticket anywhere in the region and travel on mass transit. That's the ultimate objective. Toward that end, we've got to have a great light rail system, a great bus system, a great commuter system, whether it be park and ride and or rail, and we've got to have a walkable city and a bikeable city. So that's all transportation, but that has to be done in the context of the region. When I say the region, I mean having people in the region coming together, sitting down, talking about how we plan for the region as a whole, as opposed to having plans being isolated with various individual governmental units. As to sustainability, I think it's important that the city of Houston lead by example. The buildings that we build ought to be energy efficient, using alternative energy forms so that we lead the region. Our fight to keep the air clean ought to be led by the city of Houston, and we ought to be an example for the rest of the region. But most importantly, the main thing with regionalism goes back to the question that I talked about earlier in terms of leadership. You can't go around telling everybody else in the region what they're going to do. You've got to sit down with them, respect the fact that they represent individual entities, and try to find a common ground to work together. As mayor, I will do that.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Locke told me I had to keep this tight scheduled so that he could get to his next appointment on time. So keep cutting him off. Sorry about that. All right. Peter, Mark will be up first with, will you make walkability and bicycle infrastructure a priority? What are some of the ways to address this problem?
Yes, Peter Brown will make it a priority. Peter is an advocate for having walkable neighborhoods. Neighborhoods that have sidewalks, but sidewalks aren't just good enough, and they have to be sidewalks that are actually usable. That means that sidewalks where more than two people can walk on it at the same time. Sidewalks that don't have an electrical pole in the middle of it where people have to get into traffic to walk around the electrical pole. Sidewalks that are actually well maintained and kept up with so that people can use them. But and the other half of that was the bikes, having bike lanes, having the bike trails. But it all has to be part of a greater issue, and that's transportation options, because everything should be integrated. And that's by having a light rail with regional rail. It's being where there's a rail stop, the bus system will go out from the bus stop and into the neighborhoods. Where those bus stops are, then there'll be sidewalks. So if somebody wants to ride their bike to the bus stop, there's a place for them to put their bike on the bus. There's a place for them to deal with their bike on the light rail. There's all these transportation options to allow people to do what they want to do. And the big thing is the light rail we've talked about. Peter Brown, as a co-founder of the Main Street Coalition, helped get the first line of light rail going. But it's been over 5 years, and Peter believes it's unacceptable for Metro to continue on the light rail. For it really to be the economic generator, and for really to help all Houstonians, it has to be a comprehensive network with commuter rail, with the bike lanes, and the walkable neighborhoods that we've talked about. If it has that comprehensive network and it's built in a way to minimize the disruption on business, it can be a great tool, because every global city, the capstone of that city, is a great transportation network. And that's what Houston needs. We're behind Denver, we're behind Dallas, and if they can do it, we can sure do it in Houston. And with that light rail, with the bikes, with the walkable neighborhoods, it'll get people outside, talking to their neighbors, knowing their city, and we'll be able to create more character and pride. Thank you.
All right. Jean, you're up next. I'm not skipping you this time. Could you speak to the importance of transit-oriented development in the sustainability of Houston?
Well, we've talked about bringing more people into Houston. We've got to be able to move them around, which means we've got to have a great mass transit system, which means the development that we do has to accommodate a new transportation mode. So I'm a supporter of transit-oriented development. Having said that, let me quickly say that different people use that term to mean different things. When I talk about it, I mean transit-oriented development around transit stations and stops, because I think that you treat those differently than you do neighborhoods where you have a light rail system going through the neighborhood. And some of those neighborhoods have a wonderful historic character that they don't want destroyed by the new form of development that comes in. Generally, this is going to be a test for the leadership in Houston and for the region. How do you accommodate the new modes of transportation, accommodate larger numbers of people, accommodate different lifestyles in living in terms of residential life, while at the same time being able to maintain the vibrancy of Houston? I think we can do it. I think that having smart thoughts about what we do, transit-oriented development, is important, so that people can live next to and close to stations, so there can be commercial centers next to and close to stations, and so that people can walk to and from to be able to get to major transit centers.
Thank you. All right, Roy, what is your plan for ensuring our water and wastewater infrastructure has adequate funding to extend new service, scale existing service to meet our growing demands, and address pollution in our bios in the Bay?
Well, first let me talk about it in two different phases. One under normal conditions, and the other planning for the next storm that comes through here. So let me start with the first. As far as the budget, we need to make sure that those enterprise funds that are set up for our water infrastructure stays there. It doesn't get out into the general fund. It needs to stay there for the maintenance and upkeep for good, clean, drinkable water. We need to make sure that we work with the surrounding region, because we only get a small percentage of water from underground. Most of it comes from our tributaries. And of course, a lot of these tributaries are outside of the city of Houston as well. We need to make sure that those water reserves that are in the city, we need to make sure they're cleaned up. Lake Houston for years has been building up sediment. And this sediment keeps in dangerous bacteria like coliform. It can also have E. coli. We need to make sure we start cleaning that up. Recently, you just received a pay hike on your water bill. And that's because the city told us we needed to purchase more chemicals and we had more people here. Well, let's clean up. Again, it goes back to prevention. If we clean up Lake Houston that has several feet of sediment, not only can we sell that sediment for profit, but we reduce the possibilities of that bacteria reaching us. And it's just a small amount, ladies and gentlemen, could affect those like the elderly, like those that have an immune deficiency. It doesn't take much. We just got to plan ahead. Now let me talk about what we need to do about our water reserves and our water during a hurricane. We were one generator away from losing water. We're not prepared for a Category 4 coming through Freeport, coming through Houston. It would have an effect because it is a 22-foot tidal surge. And we got to be prepared for it.
All right, and Ms. Parker, how do you plan to maintain the viability of small businesses affected during the construction of the next phases of light rail?
I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. We need to plan better. We need to get it done right the first time. We need to communicate to the small businesses, and there needs to be a troubleshooter within the Public Works Department to handle problems on the fly so that we can be turned around immediately. And the reason I can answer that question really quickly is because I used to be a small business owner. I spent 20 years working in the oil and gas industry, but for 10 years I owned a small retail bookstore on Richmond Avenue. And in the 10 years that we were open, Richmond was torn up by the city of Houston 3 times. And we almost went out of business 3 times because the city did not plan appropriately, did not coordinate with the businesses along the route, and kept the segments closed for much too long a time. I saw that same thing happen to the businesses along Main Street. We almost destroyed Main Street while the light rail was being built. The other thing I can say is that one of the first jobs the mayor asked me to do when I became controller for him was to do an audit of public works projects that came in over budget and over time, because he was absolutely convinced that the contractors out there were ripping off the city of Houston. To his surprise, and maybe not to yours, I discovered that the problem was on the city of Houston's side, that every time they encountered a problem like, oh, the water line was 4 feet off from where it was supposed to be, we're going to have to go back and do some kind of a change order or change our plans, it took 2 weeks to get a response out to the street. Will not happen in a Parker administration.
Okay, our last but certainly not the least topic, one of the most important, youth and education. So the lead question is this: what should the city do to be a true partner with schools, nonprofits, business to improve the quality of life of younger citizens and prepare tomorrow's workforce? I'm actually going to start with Marc on that one.
Currently, there is a dropout epidemic in Houston, and Peter Brown is aware of this, and he believes something needs to be done. When you have the main school district, HISD, with a dropout rate of over 50%, it is an economic issue, it's a public safety issue, it's a quality of life issue, and it's a community issue. And everybody's a stakeholder in this, and that's why there needs to be all the stakeholders have to come together to work together to solve this problem. And this is about really unifying, cooperating, and looking at ways to partner up with business, with the nonprofits, with community leaders to really look into innovative after-school programs, mentoring programs, tutoring programs, really looking to get our children active and involved, because that's what Peter's really big about. And that's what I said at the beginning, is what Houston's going to be in 15 to 20 years. And that really depends on what how well educated our citizens are going to be, how well educated our workforce is going to be, and how we're going to be able to lead Houston on from then. Thank you.
Okay, and Annise, you are first up with what is your plan? Oh, I did it again. Sorry about that. You're up to answer the question.
Education is an area where the city of Houston has the mayor of Houston has no direct authority, but we all have a lot of responsibility. And it's a very personal issue for me. I'm actually the only one running for mayor who still has kids in the public school system. And I have a daughter who's about to be a freshman at Lamar High School in a few days. I will appoint an education coordinator for the city of Houston to work with the 17 school districts that actually fall within the boundaries of Houston, so that we know what's going on from their standpoint and that they know what we're doing. One of the things that we've discovered is, for example, when HISD decided to close schools, they were closing schools in areas where the city of Houston had just invested millions of dollars in affordable housing efforts, in infrastructure to improve those neighborhoods. And when you rip a school out of a neighborhood, you rip the heart out of it. There are also simple things that we can do from the city standpoint. You don't want to do a road construction project in front of an elementary school just as the preschoolers are getting out at the end of the day. And there's nobody in the city of Houston to watch for those kind of things. In addition, we have to think long-term about the dropout rate and what we can do. Again, the city of Houston, we're an employer of 21,000 people. So there are opportunities for work study and internships within the city of Houston, but this is where the mayor needs to use the bully pulpit and to call out the business community to say there need to be effective internship programs, work study programs, apprenticeship programs with every major employer in the greater Houston area, that we're all in this together. And then finally, the city of Houston provides after-school programs. There needs to be an effective after-school program in every elementary and middle school in the city of Houston. It's spotty. We do some, nonprofits do some, the county does some. I will call us all together, figure out who does what where, which ones of us can provide the best service, and make sure that it happens. Because middle school is where we really begin to lose these kids. They get into gangs, they get into drugs, the girls begin to get pregnant, and they fall farther and farther behind in school.
As a Harris County School Trustee, I'm very passionate about our children receiving a high school degree and having the ability to go on to vocational training or on to a college and university. We are not responsible for the education within the independent school districts. That's left up to board members and superintendents. But we can be a loud voice, and we can help indirectly. You know, some of our schools, you know, they're hard to be funded because their whole community is falling apart. Why are they falling apart? Because the city of Houston is not providing the infrastructure that they need. You need infrastructure. You need businesses to provide that tax revenue for the schools. Now, what are some of the things that we can do? Well, first, Washington and Austin needs to help out a whole lot. They tie our hands as trustees on what we can do. Parents, they need to be engaged too, and grandparents if they're involved with their grandchildren. It starts there first, and that's what we're forgetting. They need to be involved. Not government as well, but they need to be there. Now, other areas that we can improve on for some of our children, because so many are not getting through school, and a large majority of them are Hispanic. The one thing that we can do is ensure that our children are being taught English at the earliest level. That means in Head Start. I have 2 Head Start programs. I'm the chairman of Region 1. I have one school in HISD. Parents are allowed to tell the schools what language to teach your children. On my other facility, I can start them in English. I want them all to have the ability of multiple languages because that will make them strong through school, and they will be the most successful individuals as grown-ups.
Thank you. All right, Gene.
The candidates have all talked about before me about the relationship between HISD and other school districts with the mayor's office. Let me take a slightly different tack in trying to get everybody to understand why it's critically important for our city to take ownership of this education problem. And I'm going to use kind of a business analogy, if you will. 50% of the city's revenue comes from ad valorem taxes. If you go around, as I have done, and you talk to people about moving to Houston from the surrounding areas, they acknowledge that Houston has great low-cost housing, but there are 2 impediments that most people see to move into Houston. One is crime, and one is schools, or schools and crime. Take your pick. So, from a business standpoint, if half of my income is coming in from people who I need to move into Houston, and they're not moving in because of education, that's my problem. When we're trying to compete with other cities to move businesses into Houston, we've got to represent that we have a trained, talented workforce. And when we have a 50% dropout rate, we can't do that. That's a business reason why we've got to improve the schools. I think that there are several things that we must do. The mayor must be hands-on in working directly with the major school districts to try to see if we can work in tandem in every respect. I've talked in several comments today about partnerships and working together. And how I think we need to work together. I will certainly extend that with education. Call it carrot or stick or whatever you will. I will try to find ways that to incentivize the district, on districts. But on occasion, it will be necessary to say publicly, this is just not acceptable. And I think you want to have a mayor who has the gumption and the courage to stand and say, hey guys, I know y'all run things, but the way y'all run it is impacting on us, and it's not acceptable. I'm the man who has that kind of gumption and courage. Thank you.
Okay. Now to the specific questions. And Annise, we're starting with you. What is your plan for cooperating with school districts to better integrate schools and neighborhoods?
Well, I spoke earlier about having a point person in the mayor's office to coordinate among the various school districts. And that's actually not intended in any way as a buffer between the mayor and the school districts, but to allow me to have someone on staff who's watching what's going on and can do the day-to-day work, but also to help me coordinate and to schedule my meetings regularly with those superintendents. This is about all of us and the city in which we want to live. Having an effective education system, having an education system that not only teaches our kids but keeps them safe while they're there is critical for the future growth of the city of Houston. They're educating our workforce. They're the school system is part of what we sell when we sell Houston, but it's also something that is critical to people making decisions on where they're going to locate within the city of Houston. What neighborhood are you going to buy a house in? Where are you going to have to send your kids? Can they walk to school, or are you going to have to put them on a bus and transport them across the region? So this is about dialogue, communication, coordination, and cooperation, and the leadership to bring everybody into the room and keep us all focused on the goal, which is a better educated workforce, an effective school system where our kids learn while they're there, and a system that we can proudly tout when we offer Houston as a place for economic growth to companies wanting to relocate.
Right. Mark, on behalf of Peter, 60% of teen moms fail to graduate from high school. What would you do to help prevent teen pregnancy and support teen parents?
The key is prevention, and that starts with making sure that these teens believe that there's a future for them. And that is really fostering an environment where they feel that way. That's by having those after-school programs. It's by having college assistance programs. It's by having mentorship programs to really let them know that there is a future, they can be successful, there's different paths that different people can choose. But the city also must work with the school district to make sure that there's lifestyle skills classes and programs are already provided, are continually provided. That's not just about it's teaching them the lifestyle skills, and it's not just about them being better parents, but it's also being self-sufficient, and that's also key. But with that, and I know this is our last time to speak, I want to once again thank the organization and thank you all very much for letting me be able to speak on behalf of Peter. So that, and Peter's very appreciative of that as well. And also, I'd like to thank the other candidates for allowing me to share the microphone with them. It's truly been a pleasure and my honor. Once again, if you have any questions, I can also give you Peter's personal email address. He apologized for not being here, but he would love to answer any other specific questions you have, and I'll stay after to do that as well. Thank you very much.
All right. Jean, what will you do to promote civic engagement among Houston's youth?
I think the mayor has to challenge citizens to get involved in their communities. We have to create an attitude that we are responsible in part for our destiny. And if we take this message from the mayor's office, from city council, from our churches, from our civic clubs to people, there's an expectation that people should get involved. The natural corollary of that is that young people should get involved. And maybe we should turn that around. Maybe we should have young people leading the way to show us old folks how to get involved. And maybe that's the real angle, by energizing young people to get involved at every point. They could teach us a whole bunch, because right now we are only 61 days away from early voting. And out there on that street, most people don't even know a mayor's going to be elected next year. That's a reality. And that's not an indictment on everybody out there. It's just a reflection of where we are. And so if by energizing our children, we can at least get some understanding. Now let's talk about a little bit about how we can energize our kids. There are various programs in various cities, including Houston, where we have a mayor's council or an alternative city council made up of young people from various schools. I think all of those ideas are good and healthy. In addition to those, it would be a novel idea if we ask young people to attach themselves to some of the problem-solving entities in the city. So, if we've got a task force on how to make this city green, let's just not just get some of us old folks involved. Let's get some teenagers involved and get their ideas. Let them be involved. If we've got an initiative on homeless, let's get the young people involved and have them to get their energies and ideas. They can't do any worse than we're doing.
As a mom of a very precocious 8-year-old, I agree. Will you allocate, Roy, will you allocate funding for summer jobs for youth?
Yes, yes, and yes. And even at the mayor's office, I will make sure that we have programs there for Houstonians youth. But let me talk about some of the other things that were just talked about in the last few questions here. You know, the problem that we're having with education, and I see one college trustee there, Mills Worsham, you know, he gets them several years down the road. They start off with me in Head Start. And we've got to make sure we have a program, a seamless program between all phases. And that means involvement with the parents, involvement with teachers, involvement with trustees to get our children there. We need to make sure that they have a pathway to college education or to a vocational program. I will also appoint a cabinet-level position for education to work with all of the school districts in the city of Houston. Some are in the city, and actually some are part of it, them are outside of the city too. So it makes it very complex how we work with them. But I will use a single point that's already there for us in Harris County. It's called the Harris County Department of Education, and they have access to so many programs, lessons learned, and how we could fill these gaps and make sure our children can get to that final success point. We need to make sure that children are not just held back by just a grade level. If they can blossom early, we should allow them to blossom early. We should allow them to have the ability, if they're in high school, to start taking college courses. So when they hit college, they may already be juniors or seniors. We need to have a new vision, ladies and gentlemen, and that's what I will provide as mayor of this great city known as Houston, Texas. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for giving your time today to address these very deep and important topics relative to the city. Let's give them all a very hearty round of applause. And thanks to all of you for coming out and participating in the process. You can visit my blog at mayoralmusings.com. Thanks.